You know, there's a lot of similarities right now in regards to Fox's old X-Men universe and the MCU. What? Don't believe me? Well, both universes started off strong, with their first films making a decent amount of change and some damn good critical reception. From little Tobias III all the way to Great Granny Lula, all loving the movies. Every kid wanted to be Wolverine when X-Men came out in 2000. And then Iron Man when, well, you know, Iron Man came out in 2008. If you were poor like me, you would put butter knives in your fist and run around the house pretending to be Wolverine because mommy and daddy couldn't afford to buy the plastic Iron Man helmet from Toys R Us. In fact, you probably never went there. Just stood outside the window, wishing to just step inside, not to even buy anything, but just to be able to say you were there. Alright, before I start trauma dumping, I should move on. My point is, these universes came out at a time where comic book movies weren't the mainstream genre of films. I mean, these are some of the films that helped push the genre to what we know it for. But over time, both universes went on for so long that the storylines got too confusing and the films stopped feeling connected to each other. And they simply got lazy. But with the Fox movies, they unfortunately had a sad death where no one attended their funeral. And I'm scared that the MCU will have a similar end. Now for months I've been hearing all the comments saying, the MCU is over if this fails, and if this is good, the MCU is saved. And I just stood from the sideline, rolling my eyes, thinking that both those statements were a load of shit. Mainly because every damn Marvel project has been labeled that way for the past 2 years. So my ears turned deaf to it and immediately shut that shit down. But then, the second trailer to Deadpool and Wolverine dropped, and it had me change my mind a little. I still do believe that if this movie is good, or even the greatest comic book film to have ever been made, I don't think it'll save the MCU as a whole. But I have changed my mind in the fact that if this movie does fail, I think it will affect the MCU way harder than any of the other projects that have already been considered a failure. Let's say tomorrow they announce a Power Pack movie and it falls hard on its ass. It's just gonna be another Marvel failure. Still another cut in the already pussing wound. But it is what it is. If Deadpool and fucking Wolverine eat shit, then that will be a massive blow to the MCU going forward, and maybe even the genre as a whole. I know, a little dramatic. If I was watching this very video a week ago, I think I would have rolled my eyes so hard they'd get stuck to the back of my head. But hear me out. As stated earlier, both the MCU and the Fox universes were crucial players in building up this genre, and let's be honest, they have a very special place in all of our hearts, no matter how far these universes fell from grace. Now, we are doing a nostalgic trip back to the X-Men universe and incorporating the MCU. This is a lot of people's childhood, and the main reason people even got into superhero/comic book media. So you fuck this up or make it another generic, formulaic, uninspired, cookie-cutter blockbuster, it might just be the final nail in the coffin for most hardcore fans that haven't abandoned the genre, because it's pretty obvious that most of the mainstream audience has already left. Now, personally, I still believe that the final nail in the coffin for not just Marvel, but the entire superhero genre will lie in the hands of Avengers 4 and Secret Wars. But what made me drink the Kool-Aid and start agreeing with how important this film's perception will have on affecting the rest of the genre? Well, it started with the 2 current trailers to Deadpool and Wolverine. And in my humble opinion, these trailers were excruciatingly underwhelming. For starters, one thing I noticed with the last trailer is how the film looks to be handling Wolverine. It seems he's going to be a variant and not the main Wolverine we have known and loved for 24 years. And I've heard most people are not having a problem with that, but me personally, I'm not much of a fan of that idea. I understand that they don't want to mess with the legacy of Logan, but since the Deadpool movies take place during the current time period of their release windows, they could make this take place before Logan since that movie takes place 5 years from now in 2029. And yeah, I know, the X-Men timeline is a mess, and I'm sure this movie's gonna deal with those criticisms, and probably even incorporate it into the plot. But let's be honest, even with all these controversies, we all know the Wolverine we follow in the X-Men movies is supposed to be the same one. And one of the biggest problems I have with the multiverse is the idea of variants causing us not to care about our main versions of the characters, because guess what? There's infinite versions of them. So does this version actually matter? Well, yeah, of course it does. But when we do stuff like this, it becomes a bit dicey. A good example to get my point across a bit better was when Charlie Cox's Daredevil was reintroduced in No Way Home and She-Hulk, then he got his new show announced. There was a lot of debate on whether it was the same exact version of the character we knew and loved for half a decade and 4 seasons of television, or was it just a goddamn variant? And now if you bring back a character people love with the actor they love, people expect it to be the same character. If Marvel told me all those Netflix shows weren't canon and I shouldn't care about them because this is a new Matt Murdock, it would have been a slap in the face. But anyways, I understand that this might have been the best route to take to preserve the artistic integrity of Logan. So it is what it is, and I think I can grow to accept it. Because in all honesty, it worked really well with the Loki show, but I'll wait and see. Another giant aspect of these trailers is that it gives the idea that the film is going to primarily take place in the void, which comes off as such a visually bland setting. Sure, there's that Mad Max inspired type of ambience, but it could easily fall flat. If the majority of the film does take place here, I think the movie will most likely be disappointing. Which leads to my final main thought. This movie could easily disappoint in the way Multiverse of Madness did for a lot of people. Now, me personally, I love that movie, but I did get underwhelmed with the stuff they did with the multiverse. Because it really felt like an afterthought. They did not do anything truly unique with the multiverse aspect of the film, especially given what the title was called. They had one big cameo scene, and that was it. And the damn trailers gave away the biggest surprise of those cameos too, which led to people believing that there would be even bigger cameos, because why would they give away their best one? And though I understand and even agree with the complaints of that movie, I see that one of the main problems with modern blockbuster culture has become more about wanting to see cameos than actually wanting to watch a compelling story. Since we are talking about a Marvel film, we'll stick to Marvel as an example. Almost every project that has come out in the past 2 years has one thing being discussed over and over again. That being, who's pulling up to the function? No one actually cares anymore about what the plot of the movie is about. All it's about is this character coming back? Is this actor coming back? To go back to Multiverse of Madness, all I remember the discussion being about was, is Ghost Rider going to be in it? Oh, I really hope that Reed Richards shows up. Man, wouldn't it be cool to see Ben Affleck's Daredevil? It was rarely about, how are they gonna make a good Doctor Strange movie? What are they gonna do with the character to grow him as a person? What emotional challenges is he going to have to overcome? Do I sound like a pretentious douchebag? Absolutely. But that's just where I'm coming from. Same thing with No Way Home. It was all about the Spider-Mans and the villains rather than, hey, how's Peter gonna get out of, being framed for murder? Oh, Matt made a fake phone call and it's all dropped? Who'd he call? The Judge of America? Look, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. But who cares about all that stuff that could be compelling? Let's do the memes!
I'm something of a scientist myself.
My point is, basically we either get a movie that is stuck in a bland void with only vague references to the MCU, and it disappoints people because there's not enough MCU stuff. Or we get a movie that is solely MCU stuff and disappoints people because it didn't have enough X-Men stuff. I don't know how they can do both. But let me make something clear. I'm not hoping for this movie to be bad. I'm crossing my fingers for it to be great. But these trailers, in all honesty, have brought my excitement down a bit. But what I'm hoping for is a nice mix between MCU stuff and X-Men stuff, while telling an actual compelling story that isn't all about cameos. That these trailers have kept it vague to preserve all of the real surprises, and finally, to be a nice refresher from the kind of blockbusters we've been getting. Because if there's anyone that can do it, it's Deadpool. I look back at the evolution of this character in the movies, and it honestly puts a giant smile on my face. He started off as a laughingstock. Then Ryan Reynolds fought to get the movie made when the studio didn't want anything to do with it. And when they eventually greenlit it, they gave it an almost non-existent budget for a superhero movie. And then it became the highest grossing movie in the X-Men universe. And now, he is the character chosen to bridge the gap of these two important pieces of comic book movie history. I find that genuinely wholesome, which I know is weird to say in a video about Deadpool, but that's what I feel. So, grumpy comments aside, I will keep my hope alive for this project because Ryan really is
Marvel Jesus.
Alright, that's enough from me. I'll see you in July.